feeling worse. I turn off my phone, I get down low and put my hands in the dirt. I try to stop the world from moving so fast, try to get a grip on where I'm at, and simplify this dizzy life, and put my feet in the grass. I'm going back to the earth. I'm going back to the earth. I'm going back to work. I'm going back to the earth. The only explanation for a high rise must be that everybody wants to get high and move on up to a deluxe apartment in the sky. Well, the higher we go, the taller we grow. We lose sight of the land below, where you can have your place up in outer space. 'Cause my home is where my food is grown. I'm going back to the earth. I'm going back to the earth. I'm going back to work. I'm going back to the earth. I'm going back to the earth. Alright, let's get Jurassic over this bridge. We are animals. We are animals. We are wild. We are wild. Started with the motion at the bottom of the ocean. Now we're swinging from the tops of the trees. We are animals. We are animals. We are wild. We are wild. And to truly be forgiven, we must all get back to living with the land in harmony. I'm going back to the earth. I'm going back to the earth. I'm going back to work. I'm going back to the earth. Back to the earth. I'm going back to work. I'm going back to the earth. 2 more times around. Back to the earth. Yeah. Back to earth. One more time around the world.
On? No, no. Can I? Hello? Yep. All right. We were messing with the sound, if you couldn't tell. Back there. Good morning. My name is Ken Claiborne, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of this congregation. Welcome to all of you. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart is a welcoming community encouraging religious freedom, nurturing individual spiritual and ethical growth, celebrating diversity, and promoting a just and sustainable world. If you would like to learn more about this fellowship, please look at our website at uufe.org and join us after the service for our coffee hour. For the listening enjoyment of all, we ask you at this time to please turn off your cell phones or turn them to vibrate. Also, if you need hearing support, please see the gentleman at the desk, the sound desk, and they will provide you with an enhancement method. Thank you.
Good morning. These are the announcements for today. The RE group has discussed the need for a nursery to be set up in the chance that someone brings an infant or a toddler to UUFE. We will need a crib. If anyone has a crib to donate to the church, please contact Renee Rocco. Sorry. I didn't even know that. That's awesome. Renee Rocco. It would need to be a crib that meets today's safety standards. We will also be needing volunteers to sign up for a nursery rotation. These volunteers would go with any attending infants or toddlers to the nursery room downstairs during the service and just be with them or play with them. To donate, volunteer, or inquire, contact Renee Rocco at UUFE or at the email listed in the directory. Thanks in advance to everyone for their generosity for adding a few extra shelf-stable items to your grocery cart the next time you shop. We need things like breakfast cereal, pancake or baking mix, canned vegetables and fruit, canned meat, instant potatoes, and canned chicken and beef. There are also $50 gift cards to take shopping if you would like to shop that way. You may also make a monetary donation. See Ken Claiborne if you would like to use a gift card or make a donation. And this Tuesday evening, October 1st at 7:30, you are invited to a candidates night at St. James AME Church. This is put on by the League of Women Voters and the NAACP. And there will be school board candidates will be included as well. That is this Tuesday, October 1st at 7:30. The NAACP will be there at 7. They're having a short business meeting, and then at 7:30 the candidates' night will start. St. James AME. It is the church it's on Main Street just across the railroad tracks from downtown on the right-hand side. It's on Martin Luther King Drive, but I don't know the exact address. Okay. We ring the gong 3 times, once for those who came before us and made a place for us. Once for those who are here now. And once for those who will come after us and build on the dream. Our chalice lighting this morning is by Sharon Wiley. The hours of day and night are in balance. In honor of earth-centered traditions that celebrate this time of year, we observe that the flaming chalice holds the elements of the 4 directions: earth, air, fire, water. The lamp oil for earth, the air that feeds the flame, the fire we light, and the chalice itself, the cup, the symbol of water. We light our chalice and reflect on the balance we seek in our lives, the balance we seek in our hearts, the balance we seek in our world. And now would you join me in our unison covenant? Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. And now we're going to have a story for all ages before the children are dismissed for religious education.
Today's story is Outside In by Deborah Underwood, illustrated by Cindy Derby. Once we were part of outside, and outside was part of us. There was nothing between us. Now sometimes even when we're outside, we're inside. We forget that outside is there. So outside reminds us with flashes at the window and slow magic tricks. It sends the sunset and shadows inside to play. Outside sings to us with chirps and rustles and tap-taps on the roof. It beckons with smells, sun-baked, fresh, and mysterious. Outside feeds us. Sun, rain, and seeds become warm bread and berries. Outside cuddles us in clothes, once puffs of cotton. It holds us in wooden chairs, once trees. We feel outside in the warm weight of our cats and the rough fur of our dogs. Outside shows us there is a time to rest and a time to start fresh. Outside steals inside. A spider seeking shelter, a box elder bug in the bath, a tiny snail on kale. Even rivers come inside, cool water rushing, eager to return to the sea. I'm here, outside says. I miss you. Outside waits. And we answer.
So today for Call to Worship, I wanted to reflect, on our seventh principle, which is the interdependence of all life. Our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, is a glorious statement. Yet we make a profound mistake when we limit it to merely an environmental idea. It's so much more. It is our response to the great dangers of both individualism and oppression. It is our solution to the seeming conflict between the individual and the group. Our seventh principle may be our Unitarian Universalist way of coming to fully embrace something greater than ourselves. The interdependent web, expressed as the spirit of life, the ground of all being, the oneness of all existence, the community-forming power, the process of life, the creative force, even God, can help us develop that social understanding of ourselves that we in our culture so desperately need. It is a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives. And that comes from the Reverend Forrest Gilmore, Executive Director of Shalom Community Center, Bloomington.
Stand if you're willing and able, and hymn number 203, All Creatures of the Open Sky.
I see, I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark blessed night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of the people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're only saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. We ready? I forgot. I don't know where we're at. Oh, message. Okay. You can see I'm super organized, right? Nature deficit disorder is the subject of today's conversation. But what in the hell is nature deficit disorder? We are built to be outside. It's in our DNA. Like the book. I love that book. One thing I love about preparing something is I discover all this stuff that I didn't know. Jason Mraz, I knew there was a person named Jason Mraz, but didn't really know his music. And the book, Outside In, I'd never heard of it before. But I think the author does a great job expressing. We were outdoors most of the time until the latter part of the 20th century. So we've been increasingly inside since the invention of houses, but it's been a while. Central heating and air conditioning, grocery stores, television, and the internet. And it's been kind of a gradual progression. So nature deficit disorder occurs when we disconnect from outdoor nature. Either we don't go outside, or just like it said in the book, even when we're outside, we're inside. In a vehicle, or sometimes just wrapped up in our electronic devices, so to the point it doesn't matter where we are, or what is going on around us. So I've got a couple books here. Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder, is by Richard Louv. Fantastic book. He talks about the benefits of spending time in nature, especially for young people. He also wrote a book, which I haven't read or even skimmed yet, called The Nature Principle, which addresses the benefits of nature for all people. And this book does too, to a degree. He also wrote this book, Vitamin N, which he's kind of saying, and I think a lot of pediatricians and other doctors are realizing, that one of the prescriptions for some of the problems that face our youth and the rest of us is a lack of nature. So and there's actually physicians that are prescribing walks in the woods or time in nature. So it's impossible. It would take 20 hours to go over everything that's in this book. It's just a wonderful book. But one idea he talks about is many of the ailments that we see in younger people come from their lack of exposure to nature. So what are the symptoms of nature deficit disorder? Can anybody think of any? Where's our, Jerry, where's our microphone? Anybody think of any that you can think of? What would be some of the symptoms, do you think? And then I'll read you a little bit from the book.
What about a lack of vitamin D in the sunshine?
Lack of vitamin which one?
D. Now, they say sunscreen is it's kind of a double-edged sword. You don't want too much sun, but you do need sunscreen. And there are artificial sources of vitamin D, sure, but they say that the natural form from the sunshine is the best source.
Is there anything else? If you weren't able to spend time in nature, how would that make you feel?
The innocent ignorance when you talk about something simply found in nature, and the response is, what is that?
Depression and even anxiety.
Very nice.
I'm afraid of bugs. For children, I think a lack of attention span. Poor posture. On your phone.
Just to reiterate what Linda said, ADHD, ADD, anxiety, depression.
Weak immune system.
Well, one of the symptoms of the earth is, lack of understanding of, respect for the environment, and what we're doing here.
Okay. Let me just read you a little bit. Like I said, I could spend hours on this book, but I picked a couple passages here I thought were kind of interesting. This is a section entitled Biophilia and Emotional Health. Nature is often overlooked as a healing balm for the emotional hardships in a child's life. You likely never see a slick commercial for nature therapy, as you do for the latest antidepressant pharmaceuticals. But parents, educators, and health workers need to know what a useful antidote to emotional and physical stress nature can be, especially now. There was a survey from American children. The rate that American children are prescribed antidepressants almost doubled in 5 years. The steepest increase, 66%, was among preschool children. A number of factors acting together or independently may have led to escalated use of antidepressants among children and adolescents. These factors include increasing rates of depression in successive age groups, a growing awareness of and screening for depression, and assumptions that the effectiveness experienced by adults using antidepressant medications will translate to children and adolescents. So prescribing more pharmaceuticals And they used to not prescribe those for children. It used to be 18 was like the cutoff. But they started using it more when the Food and Drug Administration asked pharmaceutical companies to add explicit product label warnings. Between 2000 and 2003, there was a 49% increase in the use of psychotropic drugs, antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, and antidepressants. For the first time, spending on such drugs if medications for attention deficits are included surpass spending on antibiotics and asthma medications for children. Although countless children who suffer from mental illness and attention disorders do benefit from medication, the use of nature as an alternative, additional, or preventive therapy is being overlooked. In fact, new evidence suggests that the need for such medications is intensified by children's disconnection from nature. Although exposure to nature may have no impact on the most severe depressions, we do know that nature experiences can relieve some of the everyday pressures that may lead to childhood depression. So I may be preaching to the choir here. Here's some personal experiences. A study of Finnish teenagers showed that they often went into nature after upsetting events, clear their minds and gain perspective and real. Lauren Herring, a 20-year-old student, described the importance of nature to her emotional health. Growing up in Santa Barbara, California, I lived in a house that had a fairly big backyard and a creek across the street. It was when I was by myself that the environment meant the most to me. Nature was the one place where when everything in my life was going bad, I could go and not have to deal with anyone else. My dad died of brain cancer when I was 9. It was one of the most difficult times for my family and myself. Going out into nature was one outlet that I had which truly allowed me to calm down and not think or worry. I truly believe there is something about nature that when you are in it, it makes you realize that there are far larger things at work than yourself. This helps put problems in perspective. And it is the only place where the issues facing me do not need immediate attention to resolution. Being in nature can be a way to escape without fully leaving the world. There's more like that. So we can see that there's definitely a connection. It makes me think of a recent experience I had while I was substitute teaching. I was working with a young man on some worksheets out in the hall. We were within sight of an enclosed courtyard. Had trees, bushes, fences. He looked out into the courtyard and got excited when he saw some birds. I think there were sparrows, and he thought he could see a nest in the tree. So in this school, a lot of schools have these enclosed courtyards, and there's a door on this side, but if you walk around to the other side, the other end of the courtyard is visible. And the tree he was looking at was on the far side. So I said, let's walk around and see if we can see more. So we continued to watch birds until it's time for me to go back to class. Ironically, and I think I might have a little video about this later, a lot of local schools have these courtyards, but they never get used. Every time I go into school, I like to get 10,000 steps a day, so I'm walking around observing. Nobody in the courtyard. Maybe all kids need is an invitation to spend time in nature. You know, kids in school do have recess. In the elementary school, at least, they have recess. So here's how recess works. Last year, I taught 3rd, 4th grade at Roosevelt. So we followed the fourth grade schedule. So kids went to lunch, 11:45 to 12:15. You know, everything's on a schedule. Then they were scheduled from recess from 12:15 to 12:35. 20 whole minutes, okay? But listen, the problem is they had to get to from the cafeteria to the playground, so they get dismissed in the cafeteria at 12:15, but they have to be quiet in the hallway. So oftentimes, by the time they made it outside, it was 20 after or later, which cut recess down to 15 minutes. And then they blew the whistle to go in at 12:30. And I was like, wait a minute, the schedule says 12:35. Well, we have to be back in class at 12:35. So now we're down to 10 minutes. Needless to say, the kids were not happy about this. Now my class, I tried to run things in a democratic fashion. So we decided to first they decided to extend recess 3 days a week. So when everybody else went in, we stayed out. And they said 3 days. I didn't tell them that. And then after a while, they're like, I said, okay, you've done your 3 days, we have to go in today. Well, we want 5 days. Well, we're going to have to present a motion, vote on it. So they voted to do 5 days. And then we added a morning. So we ended up being outside over an hour a day. First, I got a snarky email at some point that said, extra recess must be scheduled with administration. So I just sent it back and I said, well, here's the times we're doing outside learning. And I never heard back from them. So my experience is kids will play outside if they have a chance. So another, I don't know if I put this in here, but another one, I ran alternative program for 3 years, and kids had lots of choices. And a lot of times in the afternoon, we'd go around in the morning, we'd say, do you want to go somewhere this afternoon? Where do you want to go? And invariably, at least 4 days a week, we were in a park in the afternoon. So, Ken, why don't you go ahead and play those 2 clips? And let's see if you guys have any reactions, please. It's raining like crazy, but the kids still want to be out in the forest. They're still out here running around. Can you hear the rain? There they go. Just let us keep playing. Okay? You're good. Just let it go. A lot of buildings have these beautiful courtyards with trees, grass, benches, maybe even a little sunken area where you could do a play or something. Nobody ever goes out there. I have yet to be in a building in the last 3 or 4 years, well, even when I was at my building that I was at for 25 years, people do not use those courtyards. And it's like, why aren't you using the courtyard? It's a beautiful little space. It's enclosed. Even if you don't want to take kids outside because they might run off in different directions, which doesn't usually happen anyway, but this is enclosed by the building in a beautiful natural green space. So I would really like to say to some principals, why aren't you using your courtyard? It's a beautiful space. Okay, go ahead and pause it. No, you got to pause it because it'll go right to him. So when I was a boy, we used to run and play outdoors whenever we could. We didn't have air conditioning, for one thing, and electronic entertainment was very limited. Television during the day, on the week, there was nothing for kids. So, and my parents didn't seem to worry. I don't know. They didn't know what I was doing or where I was. I was out riding my bike, and I was telling my wife when I was getting ready for this that when I was 14 or 15 years old, I used to ride 2 or 3 miles out to a stone quarry There was a lake, pay my 50 cents or a dollar, I can't remember how much it cost to get in, spend the whole day swimming, and then in the afternoon get on my bike and ride back home again. And I suppose they kind of knew where I was. So any reactions to any of the, or maybe I could say this. Oh, I guess that's the next question. Any reaction, anything about kids and nature or yourself, maybe when you were a kid, or how do you experience it?
I went to Pierre Moran Junior High, and we had a courtyard, and you're right, nobody ever went into it except my friend and me, and we had some corn, we had seed corn, and we planted seed corn in the courtyard, but it didn't grow. Probably didn't get enough rain or something.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to go down the dirt road to the mud ponds and walk down the hill to the lake and sit there while I was upset about something. And it was safe. But as I grew into teen years, it became unsafe to do that near the railroad tracks where some people were hopping off trains and hurting people. And as an older woman, the other side of that for me is that the weather has become so extreme that sinus problems in the spring and the fall keep me from being able to go out. And I miss that.
So far, I can have good memories driving by Middlebury and Prairie Street because the school's still there that I went to. And recess was I much preferred outside recess than Deber Days. Remember what Deber Days used to be when the guy came around and went to all the schools and we had dodgeball in the basement. But that was in the wintertime. But anyway, the railroad tracks there go all the way out to Rice School out at by Central High School now. And that was my playground, all along the railroad tracks. In fact, the first house we bought was on Wood Street, out by Joe and Eddie's back there at Bulldog Crossing. And I got pictures of my boys just standing, watching the trains go by. And so that's good memories for me.
I'm probably one of the last generations of kids that was allowed to run wild. I did that with my daughter. She was allowed to ride her bike around the neighborhood. We lived in Bristol, and I had people comment that I was being a negligent parent for letting her ride unsupervised, because we lived 2.5 blocks from the library, and she was 5 or 6 and would ride her bike down to the library by herself. And, and so there's a lot of, the fear was she would be kidnapped. Statistically, that was very unlikely, especially with her. But that we wound up doing a lot of camping. And I would take, when Carradine was small, I would take my niece and nephew, and that was our last big summer trip, camping, tent camping. And rain or shine, the kids would get filthy. One year, caterpillars were everywhere. Slugs were everywhere. And the kids had a little bug box, and they went around and collected caterpillars and slugs in the rain. Yeah. And to this day, my niece and nephew, they remember those experiences out in nature. And, my back doesn't let me do the camping the way I used to, but I garden. I'm out as often as I can be.
Well, my experience with kids is they will go out. What I like the clip I said is they will go out in the weather if you ask them to go out. They will go out.
Well, I had a lot of great experiences growing up. My elementary years were literally almost a long stone's throw from my school. So when we were out playing, my dog would get out of the yard and come down and play with all the kids. That was quite fun. But we did, I grew up in the country, so we had country schools essentially. And one year we grew, literally had a giant snowball as, I don't know, as tall as our lights around the edge. There were 50 kids pushing this just to collect up snow. And every day it got to be a thing, and it got to be so big, and it was there clear until warm weather. It was so huge. It was a great memory, but we also, I always got in trouble because I drifted off towards the trees. We had a marble tree in our, the playgrounds now are sterile. They just have the basic equipment. And we did too, but we had other things in the yard. We climbed on the propane tanks in the back of the school.
Well, the thing about schools is, depends on which school you're at. Some of them have really cool green spaces, but like I was at a school, let me think, which one was it? I've been to so many schools, it becomes a blur after a while. But I was the first teacher out there for my grade because we went out a little early, and there's this big green space, not a lot of trees, but there was a big maple tree, another big tree, and the mulch area, blacktop area. And so some kids wandered out to the tree. And so it's good to kind of know what's going on. So I walked out there, and they weren't doing anything bad or anything. So then another teacher came out. She saw those kids out there, and she went and got them and brought them back, and she told me only the mulch and the blacktop. That's all they're, which is great, that's all they can do. So some schools have really cool spaces, but again, they don't often get used.
We did an awful lot of tent camping. That was basically how we took vacation. And we slept in the tent, but we were outside all the time. And so many joys, so much fun, so much I learned, and had confidence in myself and the environment by getting to know it. And there wasn't much playground equipment when we were camping, but all you needed was an imagination. And boy, did we have that. And I just can't imagine who I would be if I hadn't had that going on.
Even if you're in a tent, though, it's not quite like being in a house, because a tent, you still hear what's going on, you still experience some things, so not quite the same thing.
I remember being a bit maybe like you. I would get on my bike with my friends in the morning. My mom had no idea where we were going. Sometimes she'd even pack me a lunch. Bye, and go away. But she would have been charged with neglect. Where is your daughter? But the other thing that always kind of amazes me, the difference between when I grew up and the girls grew up, is nobody wore a bike helmet. Nobody wore knee pads when you were roller skating, and your roller skates were barely held on by these little flip things on the side of your shoes and everything. And your safety belt was this. I just think it's good that we're safe, but it also, I think, makes us think so much about what might happen, what could happen. And, danger, yeah.
Well, and actually in the book he talks about this fear of child abduction, how the fear has grown, but the actual incidence of it happening has decreased. So it's much safer now than it was when we were kids, but people are much more afraid of letting their kids out of their sight. And this accusation of parental, even child abuse in some places has been brought for parents letting their kids go unsupervised. Somebody's got the microphone on. Okay, go.
Hey, when I was a kid, we rode bikes everywhere, and there was the woods and the field back behind the neighborhood, and it was possible to ride over to the elementary school, so we did that a lot. And now you can't do that because there are subdivisions there and fences and concrete. And in order to ride from that neighborhood over to the school, you have to go on busy roads now. And so we really need to be careful where we're building things, and that's why it's so important that we have, parks, designated natural areas that we're not allowed to build anything in. You can still go out and get in nature that way.
I think where we are, Elkhart City and Elkhart County both, we're pretty fortunate. There are a lot of green spaces. There are a lot of parks. And there's even parks, every once in a while I'll come across one and I'm like, I didn't know that was there. Actually, when I was out in Portland, Beaverton, I would go for a walk. And I found this, I Googled it, there was a green space. I walked over there, walked through the trail. There's just a little, probably 4 blocks, a little area, old growth forest. And when I went back, I asked my brother and sister, did you know about this? No. I asked my niece, did you know that was there? No. They never heard of it. But the fear thing is a big thing. Now, I don't want to abuse your time, so I've got a little bit more. You want to keep reminiscing, or should we go on with the...
We have a couple of acres, and it's partly wooded, and the neighborhood kids come over, absolutely love it. All you have to do is turn them loose, and then try to keep track of them. As they're sticking to the creek, and we did have somebody fall in once. We try to educate them, and we have books about frogs and trees and whatever, and we'll bring them up on the deck. They love it. They don't want to go home.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that one of the most memorable and favorite times growing up with my 4 brothers and other neighborhood boys was the day or two after Christmas, because we'd all get together and gather all of these Christmas trees and take them to the park and build Christmas tree forts, and then we would raid each other's forts trying to grab trees.
When I was growing up, I lived in the country on a farm. We had lots of woods, lots of fields to wander, and myself and my 2 brothers and neighbors wandered all over those. Those are all subdivisions. They're all built up now. Nothing left like that.
So, I guess the next question I asked, what's the cure for nature deficit disorder? And it's pretty simple, get outside. And I won't read all of them that I had marked, but this book is full of suggestions that I think are really great. Pardon? Vitamin N. But vitamin N. And in the foreword, he talked about how doctors can prescribe. So this is from day 1 of life. I thought this was really interesting. Calm an infant through nature. Is a baby throwing a fit in a restaurant or other public setting? Take the baby outside. Find a tree, and together explore the bark or leaves through sight and touch, while expressing excitement and surprise. In many cases, this quickly calms a fussy child or an embarrassed, stressed-out parent. Put nature on the calendar. If you plan the family's sports commitments and vacations in advance, do the same for time spent in nature. Try skipping organized sports for a season and use that time to get outside. That suggestion won't work for everyone, but for busy families, taking time to nature requires taking time and putting it on the calendar. Turn your commute time into nature safaris. That would be for take kids to school, that type of thing. Play hooky. That's right, cookies, preferably with the teacher's permission. But I had a policy when I was running my program and I was the administrator of the program and I took attendance. If a parent called me and said, we're doing this today, I counted that kid as present because they were still, of course my philosophy is learning occurs everywhere all the time. So as long as I know what's going on, so it is kind of nice to look at. Some teachers may fuss a little bit, but that's okay. They can fuss. In his book, Homegrown Adventures in Parenting Off the Beaten Path, Ben Hewitt suggests the parents of school-age children take them out of school for a day. Grandparents could do this too. And take the day off work yourself. He suggests unplugging all screens at home and for at least part of the day heading for the woods or park, the middle of a hayfield with no agenda. That's a good one too because it's somewhere in here, maybe in the other book. Sometimes we think we always have to have an agenda. And like you were saying, you don't really need an agenda. Let the kids, I can't tell you last year, Roosevelt, how many games the kids made up themselves, all these weird tag games and, but again, this book has lots of ideas. So let me talk a minute about Woodlawn. And Woodlawn is a charity that UUFE donates. Occasionally you hear them say, we're sharing the offering with Woodlawn. So many of you know, and maybe some of you don't know, Woodlawn Nature Center and Unitarian Universalist Fellowship are closely linked. Dorothy Greenleaf Boynton donated land for both to be birthed on. According to woodlawnnature.org, About Us page, in 1964, the Woodlawn Nature Council, a not-for-profit organization, was established by Dorothy Greenleaf Boynton to operate a nature park and center on 10 acres of forest land. The council erected and dedicated a building in 1965 for the Nature Center. The land and building were then donated to the city of Elkhart as park property. So next year will be Woodlawn's 60th anniversary. The purpose of Woodlawn Nature Center is to maintain a woodland park as sanctuary for local flora and fauna and to provide educational opportunities to anyone interested in nature. The mission of Woodlawn Nature Center is to reconnect people with nature, natural history, and the environment. So for the next 60 years, since the council started in 64, Woodlawn Nature Council was the governing body that ran the center, created programming, owned and maintained the exhibits, and managed the day-to-day operations of the center. Over the years, the council experienced conflict, financial setbacks, pretty mildly, and if anybody's interested, I can tell you a little more about that, and decreased participation. So that's the past. Let's talk about a little bit about UUFE. According to UUFE.org, Dorothy Greenleaf Boynton donated 3 parcels of land on Garden Street, just south of Woodlawn, in 1962. So I guess that makes UUFE the older sister. UUFE has its own green space. Have you taken a walk in our woods? Woodlawn has 8 acres of old-growth forest in the middle of an industrial residential area. And when I talk to other nature centers and other people, they're kind of amazed that Woodlawn is right in the middle of the city. A lot of nature centers are off. Trails are open from dusk to dawn for hiking. I've seen people bring their lunch, eat in their cars, or at picnic tables. We have a couple of those, and then walk the trails. So what is the future for Woodlawn? Decision was made this past spring to transfer control of programming, monthly expenses, and operations to Elkhart City Parks and Recreation. Council will remain as an advisory and fundraising body and will maintain ownership of the exhibits and artifacts. The city and Woodlawn Nature Council are currently seeking input as to the future direction and operation of the Nature Center. We, in the past, had several open houses and will continue to provide opportunities for people to voice their opinions, hopes, and dreams regarding Woodlawn. And I have to say, I don't know how many of you know Jameson Meckie, who's our park superintendent, and was a Feeder kid. He wasn't in my class, but I knew him when he was a little sprout. Pretty good guy. And he's got some pretty interesting ideas for what's going to happen at Woodlawn. So I'm very optimistic about. So I hope you'll spend more time getting outside. I hope you'll invite younger people in your life to spend some time outside. I hope that together we can work on regaining the balance that the UU7 principle promotes. Thank you. We kind of did the conversation. So, I mean, if you bear with me for just a couple minutes, I think for benediction, I'm going to play a little song. Oh yeah, you want to sing a hymn? You want to skip it? Skip it? Okay. I forgot the hymn. So, that book, which I don't want to bend over and pick up again, Outside In. The thing I find amazing about picture books is a really good author can take a big idea and put it in a few words. I wonder, it'd be interesting to do a word count, but I bet there's not over 100 words. But her ideas are just like, wow. So it inspired me. And another form that you have to get big ideas in a few words is a song. Once we were part of outside, and outside was part of us. Now when we miss outside, our inside turn to dust. Trees and forests, rocks and streams, flow forever in our dreams. Hills and valleys, mountains tall, growing grass beneath it all. Everyone needs some outside to make their lives complete. When you go back to outside, your inside feels so sweet. Trees and forests, rocks and streams, flow forever in our dreams. Hills and valleys, mountains tall, growing grass beneath it all. Let's all go outside, dancing and singing songs. And when we all come back inside, we won't stay very long. Trees and forests, rocks and streams, live forever in our dreams. Hills and valleys, mountains tall, growing grass beneath it all. Feels like there's more, but I didn't write any more. By the way, if you want to walk over there, I'll be glad to open it up and take you on a tour. And we can even walk through you can walk right through the UUFU woods to get to Woodlawn. So, I brought some t-shirts. Yes, if you'd like a Woodlawn Nature Center t-shirt, $20. Doesn't see the. That was the benediction, so. The Paradise put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got to live on? They pay Paradise, put up a parking lot. Took all the trees, put them in a tree museum. Now they charge the people $1.50 just to see them. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got to live on? They pay Paradise, put up a parking lot. Hey, farmer, put away your DDT now. Give me spots of my apples, give me the birds and the bees. Please, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got to live on? They pay Paradise, put up a parking lot. Late last night, heard the screen door slam. A big yellow taxi took away my old man. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got to live on? They pay Paradise, put up a parking lot. I said, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got to live on? They pay Paradise, put up a parking lot. They pay Paradise, put up a parking lot. Pay Paradise, put up a parking lot. Thanks, everybody.